everybody, welcome back. So in this video, I wanted to take a moment to talk about a type of mental illness that's very poorly understood, and it also commonly gets confused with other types of mental illnesses as well, which makes it even more complicated. But I wanted to talk about borderline personality disorder. So borderline personality disorder is a very, very difficult illness to live with. It's very difficult to get treatment for because it often gets overlooked. One of the more common mental illnesses that it gets misdiagnosed with is bipolar disorder due to the overlap in mood-related symptoms and some other symptoms like self-destructive behavior, explosive anger. You know, those two are really quite similar in that aspect. But borderline personality disorder is actually quite different from bipolar disorder, and some people can actually have both in some cases. But borderline has some very distinct features that are actually quite different if you kind of go down the list. So one of the very big key features of borderline personality disorder is the intense fear of abandonment. Everybody, to some degree, has a little bit of a fear of like people that they care about leaving them and abandoning them, but with borderline, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, borderline is associated with trauma, usually in childhood. And people with borderline, they tend to have this very intense fear of abandonment. They don't like to be alone, and that really kind of builds when things like that happen, because they can fear abandonment even in situations where that you wouldn't normally think of. Like, they could be going on a date with somebody, and their date could be like, let's say 10 minutes late. And, you know, that sucks when that happens, but in the eyes of somebody with borderline personality disorder, they're going to immediately see that as their date stood them up, or that they're not showing up. So then when their date does finally show up, it immediately turns into this really intense anger. And anger is a very big component of borderline personality disorder, and because a lot of their mood swings that they have are very kind of moment to moment, they can get triggered by things relatively quickly, and a lot of times it's usually environmental and or like in relationships. So this particular scenario is actually a perfect example as to how somebody with borderline can go from the fear of abandonment to very intense anger very quickly. And, you know, in this case, their partner may not know what's going on or what's causing it. They may not know if they did anything wrong. And they also tend to, not only does their emotional state change relatively quickly, but they tend to have like this black and white thinking, like all or nothing, and it's called splitting. So, like, if we're using this scenario as a prime example, this person's on the date, they're waiting for their partner to show up, and maybe they're newly dating, and they really put this person on a pedestal, because, oh, this person's everything I wanted in a relationship, they're so perfect, I just love everything about them. But then, you know, the clock starts ticking, this person's not here on the date yet, and this person is starting to get more and more upset as to why this person is not showing up, why their partner's not showing up. So then this ideation, them idolizing them like this quickly turns into anger, despair. Oh, I hate them. There's nothing good about them. They always do this to me. It's almost like they just like seeing me just worry like this. You know, why am I even wasting my time? So then it's kind of like flipping a coin where first you have heads on one side, this love, this ideation, then you flip to tails, and then tails is, oh, facing my back at you, mad at you. And it can happen very, very quickly. And since people with this disorder, since their mood swings can change very quickly, like in situations like this, and their feelings about somebody can change very quickly, it's easy to see why somebody who has borderline personality disorder has a very hard time in relationships. If they go from the, you know, I love you, I hate you, don't leave me. I heard there's actually a story called that about borderline personality disorder. And that phrase is actually pretty self-explanatory when you think about it, because there's just so many intense emotions that go with borderline personality disorder that make dating so difficult. And really, these people often suffer from a lot of loneliness because of a disorder like this. And they feel like they don't have control of their emotions. And when they do have like depression and like a kind of despair from their symptoms, that's kind of what leads more to like the suicidal ideations and self-harming. And then they can make very impulsive decisions. Substance abuse is very common in a lot of types of mental illnesses, but especially borderline personality disorder. because they just feel like they have no control over things in their life. They feel like they are unlovable, and that's a very, very hopeless feeling. You know, they don't know why they feel like this. They don't know why they push people away, but it's like the intense fear of abandonment and these really intense emotions. It's like just makes them feel obligated to push people away because they just feel like that they are unlovable, and they just kind of, it's like they kind of almost get used to people just kind of leaving them. Like they don't want to be alone, but to some degree they kind of almost do get used to that feeling. So it's like they just kind of push people away before they have the chance to leave them because they just assume it's going to happen anyway. So there are a couple different symptoms of borderline personality disorder. So we definitely we hit the fear of abandonment, we hit the emotional dysregulation, we hit like the kind of black and white splitting, the kind of all or nothing thinking. There's the suicidal, self-harming behavior. There's hopelessness and depression. With borderline personality disorder, there is also a lot of kind of, not only is there kind of self-esteem related things, but their sense of identity is also extremely unstable. So it's not uncommon for them to kind of really like kind of keep changing their mind about what exactly they want to do, like, you know, what they want to study in college, what kind of job they want to have. You know, they might change their style a lot because they really kind of have like this, they don't really have a firm sense of who they are as a person. So that can change a lot with borderline personality disorder. And part of it is because they usually have this chronic feeling of emptiness. They don't usually have a lot of gratitude. They don't have a lot of, like, I guess gratification was the word I was looking for. But yeah, they don't have a lot of fulfillment in their lives. So they have this chronic feeling of emptiness, which you tend to also see in depression. So their depression is a little bit different than what you would see in somebody with just depression by itself, or even bipolar disorder. So that's kind of another reason why it gets overlooked, because depression is in so many different mental illnesses that people just kind of think of the same generic thing, but they don't think of how in borderline personality disorder it tends to be a lot more like empty, and it tends to be a lot more chronic. And again, like when people talk about like the anger component, anger again is very common in a lot of people. Bipolar disorder has been known for having very explosive rage. With borderline, it is more so when feeling like they don't have a sense of control in things in their life. So, like, a lot of that can be relationship based, like really feeling neglected by their partner is a pretty big trigger for anger. Or, like, if you have a feeling that your partner is not happy with you, that they're just going to get tired of you and leave you, that can cause a lot of anger, too, because the person might start thinking to themselves, why am I unlovable? Why does this keep happening to me? And that just really can start the spiral of not only the anger, but that can turn into depression and other self-destructive behaviors as well. So there's a lot of emotional instability with this condition, since it's kind of a moment by moment. And in regards to getting treatment for an illness like this, a lot of it is more heavily focused on therapy than it is medication. And if you are diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder, there's a lot of therapy. There's therapy that goes with it as well, but that one is also kind of more medication focused, because you usually do need medication if you have bipolar disorder. So between these two illnesses, that's why getting the proper diagnosis is so important. I mean, if you have both, of course they're going to try to treat both of them, but like, if you really don't know which one you have, that's one of the things that can make this so difficult. So if you are somebody struggling with a very intense, debilitating personality disorder, such as borderline personality disorder, it is very much possible for you to live a happy life and for you to get past this and to kind of learn what works for you. But your brain is telling you so many things at a time, and it's just so hard. Like, your brain can trick you so easily into believing certain things that aren't true, and especially if there's a trauma component to this, that needing to be addressed as well, because it's not uncommon for somebody with borderline personality disorder to have PTSD or have other, like, more complex issues that go with it, and that can also make treatment very difficult, because all of those things need to be treated, and not just one thing. But this illness is very poorly understood. It's very, very hidden, and it can be quite obvious, but there's also several types of it, and if you have other mental illnesses, or it's been confused as other types of mental illnesses, it can make it even harder. So don't give up and just keep fighting. You'll get through this, and even though this is a very highly stigmatized mental illness. You can live a happy life. You can coexist with this, and it doesn't have to control you. You can have control over your life, even if it doesn't always feel like it. But until next time, have a great day, guys.